Yeah, it's still morning. All right. Yeah, I'm Don Miggs, and I'm probably a little different than some of the people you guys have had in here. It probably looked a lot cooler than I do. I play music for a living. It's the greatest thing ever for me. It might not be for you, but my story, I mean, I hear you guys are like the smartest of the smartest and the best of the best, and congratulations, that's great. I never was. I was always somewhere in the middle. I always wanted to make my mom and dad really proud, and I also always wanted to be a rock musician, and sometimes those two things didn't really see eye to eye because I had to get my hair long and wear cooler clothes, and my mom and dad would be like, "You want to cut your hair?" And I never wanted to cut my hair. And then when I did, I was so glad I did, because now I look more like Chad. That's my brother-in-law too, by the way. So I wrote some things down because I forget things. That is a compliment, yeah. So this is sort of about leadership and about where you guys want to be in life, right? Am I right? Okay. So I think the single most important thing that anyone can do for their life is a strong work ethic, because that's not something to be taught. We can have conversation about it, and it sounds sort of flip. You go, well, work harder than everybody else, and you're like, well, some kids just want to play a video game, or I just want to go outside, or I want to be a rock star, so I just want to play my guitar. It's not just about doing something. It's about doing it harder and better than everybody you know, because in the end, there are a million people going for the same slot that you are. In my industry, I'm up against the guys in Matchbox 20. I'm up against Adam Levine from Maroon 5. I'm up against all these people with tons and tons of talent. And the only thing that separates me from anyone else, because I could probably throw a rock and hit 3 people who play music in here, right? Does anyone play music? Yeah, and most of you are probably better than I am. But what I do better than a lot of people is I don't stop. I'm like, I don't know, the Energizer Bunny, or I don't know, these guys could shoot me in the leg and I'm going to get up and keep going. That's the truth. I will work harder than anybody at what I do. And that's what's made me successful. Now, that doesn't make you out of the box, you have to have luck. We'll go back to Adam Levine. He had luck, timing. Some would say he's cute. Some would say he has a great voice, and he writes, I see these people think he's cute. And he writes a pretty good song. But the way he got there, it wasn't just that he was sitting around playing guitar a couple of days and writing some songs. While everybody else was having fun, he was working hard. I literally have one rib that goes in more than the other, because I used to sit in my room and play the guitar for 8 to 12 hours a day. And it didn't even make me so much better. I'm not a great guitar player. I'm okay. But while all my friends were out on Friday night having parties, I would be doing the thing that I knew was going to be the thing I was going to do for the rest of my life. So I worked harder, always worked harder. If I went to a party, I was the idiot in the corner where there'd be a piano playing. But I could tell you this, guys, the girls always came over to where I was. You know, even though my hair was in my eyes and I didn't look so good. So work ethic. You know, my dad always said to me, you don't have to be the smartest. You don't have to be the strongest. You may never be any of those things. You may never be the most talented. But there's no excuse for not working the hardest. None. Because that's all you have. At the end of the day, you are what you give to the world is what has made you up, is your integrity, your intent. Those are the things that you carry with you. And so I applaud you. Get A's, you know, be the best in your class, do all those things, but more important, work harder than everybody else, because nothing else will matter in the end. I promise you that. I'm sure that anyone here who is an adult that's working, the way they get ahead is that they're doing something a little more than the person next to them. So my story sort of sucks, actually. And it could be long and boring to how I got to play with some great people and do some things that I think are pretty cool. But I graduated high school, and I was in New York, and I was going to go to college to be a lawyer. And I thought that is a smart move. That's what my parents would think is a smart move. We had no money, so it was going to make it a little difficult to do. So before that, I went to Juilliard in New York, which is a music school. It's that whole famed school where people are dancing on tables and stuff. And none of that ever happened at my school. There was no dancing on tables. But for high school, I went my last year in high school, and I realized that I really love music. I love writing it and performing it. But I didn't really want to go to college for it. I like classical music, but it wasn't really my thing. So I was getting ready to go to college, and the other thing I want to do is play baseball, but I can't hit a curveball to save my life, which stinks because I would have been a really great baseball player if I could just hit a curveball and I was taller. And then I wouldn't have to tour the country playing music. So long story, get back to it. All right, so I graduated high school, and I'm getting ready to go to college, and instead I get offered to go on tour with this guy and to play guitar. And I put together this band, and we're going to play guitar for him. And we're going to play music. He's going to be the singer. And we tour Army bases for a little bit. And I realized how much fun it was, but how hard it was. I mean, you don't sleep in the same place. You know, every night you go to another place, and then in the morning when everyone is getting to sleep, you're on a tour bus traveling to the next city, and everyone thinks it's so glamorous and it's wonderful, and all you're trying to do is like get enough sleep so that you can perform for an hour and not do a good job, right? So I'm doing this thing, and lo and behold, I'm writing some music. I get offered a record deal. I get offered a record deal with RCA, and at the time, I was 19, that was a really big deal. It still is a really big deal. So I have my band, and we get signed, and we go into New York City to record our first album. And we go in, and the room is probably 10 times the size of this room. It's enormous, and it goes up so high that it's intimidating. You could play like 2 back-to-back basketball games could be played there, and like you could throw the ball up and probably not hit the ceiling. So like my palms are sweating, I get in there, and on the walls are like Elvis Presley and all these like big artists from a million years ago, and I'm thinking, I'm about to record here. So we sign the record deal there, and there are cameras, all this stuff's going on, they're filming it, we're signing the record deal, and you know, we're like, how did this happen? You know? And so what happens, to backtrack, life is a series of, for me, it's being prepared for the luck that happens. You walk into opportunities, and you either are prepared for it and it works, or you're not and it doesn't. Now, that doesn't mean another one won't come, but that's what I say about work ethic. Our job is to be prepared for the opportunities when they present themselves, because it may never happen again. In my industry, you have a better chance of winning the lottery than making money as a musician. You have a better chance of winning the lottery than making it as a musician. That's staggering. Now, how many people do you know are like, I'm going to be a rock star? It happens all the time, you know? And it's damn near impossible. So the job goes back to work ethic, is to be prepared for the opportunity if and when it presents itself. So I'm 19 and the opportunity presents itself. And I was so unprepared, it's disgusting. I get the record deal, we go in to sing, and I sound like a frog. I'm terrible. I never took any vocal lessons. I always wanted to be a guitar player, but I wrote the songs and I was going to be the singer. So we get this record deal, I sign the contract, everybody's high-fiving. My dad is in the city with me, and he's at the whole first night. We're so excited. And I'm so terrible that first night that the record label who's there and the producer who's there, it's 1 million people that make, like 4 people make music. There are a lot of people involved. So they're all there, and they're watching this thing that I'm calling singing, and I'm doing a terrible job. And the next morning I get a phone call around 7:30 in the morning after being at the studio till around 2 in the morning. And I'm just really beat, and the phone rings, and it's the producer and it's the A&R person. And they're on the phone to tell me that I've been fired. So I'm 19, I just signed my first record deal. I'm going to be a big rock star. Another, by the way, I never learned how to drive because I always thought I was going to be in a limousine my whole life. I always thought I was going to be such a big rock star that I didn't even have to learn how to drive. So I literally had just gotten my license like a month before this. I was like the oldest loser without a driver's license in school. It was tough dating. So I thought it just came that easy. I played some guitar once in a while, and I just got a record deal. How hard is this? You know, this is cake. I said, you guys can't fire me. I'm the singer of the band, and I wrote the songs. And they said, well, you signed the contract last night, right? Yeah, you obviously didn't read it. So they could do anything they wanted. They could have put me in a dress, and I would have had to have done it. So they didn't put me in a dress, which is good, but they fired me from my own band with the songs that I wrote. So my life lesson was spending the next 6 months listening to people who were going to audition to replace me in my band. I was going to get to stay in the band and play rhythm guitar. I taught the guitar player in the band how to play. I taught the bass player and the drummer how to play in a band. And I was going to become the guy who played like rhythm guitar on the side. And my life fell apart. I was always good. I always said, you know what? I've never done a drug. I've never tried a cigarette. I've always like listened to my parents. I've been drunk 10 times in my life, and now I'm 100 years old, and it's still only 10 times in my life, right? So I've always been really good, and I'm like, how would this happen to me? And then it all came back to what I started with. I didn't work hard enough. I sort of kind of went through it because I was always good enough. I could always play enough. I could always sing well enough that I thought, well, that's enough. Just like in school, I was always good enough to get a decent grade. So why was I going to try harder when instead I'd rather, you know, try to date that girl over there, you know? Like, so my mind was never really in the right place. It was never what is most important, because one day you're 16, one day you're 26, one day you're 36, and there's no time like now to figure out how you do the work so you're prepared for each stage of your life. So what did I do? I cried an awful lot. My family had no money. I had a credit card that had like $3,200, it was a $3,200 credit card. So I took a shot and I said, okay, I'm going to start working as hard as I've ever worked right now. And I drove into the city from Long Island every day for 5 days a week to a vocal lesson for $100 a lesson. I did this every morning. At 9 a.m. I would go. I'd leave at 8 to get there for 9 to do my vocal lesson from 9 to 10 a.m. I'd get back in my car, drive home, and at 11 o'clock I'd start a job at this crappy place because I needed as much money as I could get. I worked there from 11 to 7, and then I did another vocal lesson that night. Along with that, a couple of days a week, I would go into the city after work again, and I'd listen to people sing my songs in a recording studio to take my job. And I did that. So the first 3 months I just cried after it didn't happen. I wallowed in my pity, and the world sucked and it was everybody else's fault but mine. And then I realized it's time that no one cared. The phone wasn't ringing to give me my job back. Nobody was going to give me, I wasn't getting the record deal that I wanted. I was getting the record deal that they wanted. And I decided it's time to make a change. So I did that every day. After 3 months, I did my vocal lessons every day. And about 6 months later, no one could fill the spot. For whatever reason, they didn't find the right singer for it. And we had some people who went on to do some pretty good things. And I sang every day, did my lesson, and I went through like my entire credit card and more money. And I was more than dead broke, and I auditioned for my job back because they didn't find anyone. And I got my job back. And I became the singer of my own band again. And just then, I realized that is what life's about. It's like you make the challenges, you accept them, and then you make it your own. You do what you have to do. So at that point, life was really good. We finished the album, and then the record company drops us. They decided they were going to put all their money into a little band called Dave Matthews instead of me. And I told them what a mistake they were making. And Dave still isn't doing very well. So that happened, and then I just started doing a bunch. I just kept playing music, and I said, okay, how am I going to make this a sustainable career? Because I love doing it. And the thing you can't do, the thing work ethic is not going to do for you is it's not going to give you luck. It's going to prepare you for the luck that comes. So I worked my way up in business and did really well and wound up running companies where there'd be a couple hundred people, and I was director of marketing, and then I was GM, and then I was vice president, and all of this in my 20s while still doing music. And I would do music on the weekends and just do everything I could. And then I moved to San Francisco, and somehow I lucked into the best job I could ever run into. I was making more money. I couldn't even believe how much money they were paying me. And I'd go home at night thinking, do they have any idea that they're paying me this much money? Because at that point, I'd only finished 2 years of college. And I was thinking, like, I don't know how this is happening. But I always worked really hard. I'd get to work earlier than everybody, and I'd be the last one to leave. And I read every book on leadership and on business and on just human nature. I read everything. And I worked my way up, and I just bought this beautiful house in San Francisco, and I was making more money than I ever thought that a person like me could make. And I get a phone call, and it's from the guy who produced all the Goo Goo Dolls albums, and I don't know, he did a bunch of records. And he called and he said, is this Don Miggs? And I said, yeah. And he said, I just heard a song of yours, because I still did as much music as I could, but I needed to actually feed myself too. So, and somehow that worked out where I made a lot of money, and I couldn't really, it was hard juggling the two things. This is a long story I'm telling right now. I'll get to the end. So I'm in San Francisco, I get this phone call, and he says, did you write this song? And it was a song that was on a TV show. I honestly don't even remember the TV show right now. But it made it onto a TV show, and it did well. It made me a little bit of money. And he said, did you write that song? Yes. Do you have more songs like that? I have a bunch of songs. I have, 70 songs I could give you like that. He said, great. I'd like to offer you a deal. I'd like to make a record with you. And at this point, I just bought a beautiful house in San Francisco. And it was like $800,000. It was a house. And I was the man in this, right? So I buy this house, and he offers me this deal. And at this point, I have 200 people working for me at a marketing company. And I quit my job. Right as I say it, my palms sweat, because it was the craziest thing I would ever do. But I had worked so hard to do what I loved, and I was so prepared that when that opportunity came, I quit my freaking job. And as I say it, it makes no sense to me. People would say, are you out of your mind? But I saved my money, I did what I was supposed to do. He said to me, are you a musician or somebody who plays music? Think about that. If what you do is love to play baseball, and I said, are you a baseball player or somebody who loves to play baseball? There's a difference. Is that who you are or just something you like to do? And when he said that to me, it literally was like somebody drew a line in the sand. And I said, this is my moment. I either do this now or I will never do this again. So I quit my job. And I haven't had to go back to a job since. And that's been 13, 14, 15 years, something like that. From that, I've made music my life. And the dumbest things have happened. I've been on stage with Train in Maroon 5. I write with the guy in Matchbox 20. Write songs for Kelly Clarkson and Carrie Younger, Wood or whatever it is. Write songs for everyone and anyone. You know, I was with my in an office the other day, and I just got a text, and this is funny because this guy's too. Yeah, like you guys won't like this guy. I'm sure everyone here will say they don't like him, but you probably all have his album. I just got a text from my doctor who's like, I'm sitting here with this just happened actually yesterday, with Justin Bieber, and he loves your music, which was a little strange, but still. So that's where my life has sort of come, and now I get up every day and I get to spend my time doing what I love to do. I'm in my slippers, I go in my backyard into my recording studio and I make music. And then I hang out with my kids, you know, we go out and have dinner, and then I go on tour. And that's my life. And it all comes down to a work ethic. It all is about that when other people thought it was just okay to do nothing, I did more. Always, always, always. So that's my story. Does anyone have any questions? Where did I get these shoes? No? Nothing?
I like your shoes. I like your shoes.
You do? I actually made sure I wore shoes that weren't boots. Sometimes my pants were my boots, and my brother-in-law makes fun of me. We couldn't be any more opposite in the way we dress.
It does hold the polish, though, right? Those shoes hold the polish.
They hold the polish, sir.
That's what matters.
I've never polished them, but I'm sure they hold the polish.
Don, you have a new album coming.
I do. Actually, yeah, I have a guy who just produced my album has produced everyone from Lady Gaga to Frank Sinatra. It's crazy. He has 33 Grammy nominations and has won 15 Grammy Awards. And he came to my house, to my studio, and we made an album in my backyard, which is, you know, from where I come from. I grew up in a house that was 700 square feet for 5 of us with a bathroom that, you know, my bedroom was 10 by 10. I mean, you literally could lay down and touch the walls. Didn't even have a door. I had to have a accordion door because if it had a door, it would take up too much of my room. So like to come from that to having this guy like in my house making a record with me is pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. And does anyone know the Plain White T's? Anyone know? Well, Tom, the singer, called me yesterday, and he called raving about my new album. How cool is that? Like, you know, this guy has 5 #1 hits, and he's calling me saying he's driving around LA and he can't stop listening to my new album. So the album doesn't come out until September, but yeah. And so in between there, now and then, we're preparing for tour, and I'm just writing music and producing some other things. So that's what I do. Whew, thank God someone has a question.
Will you sing for us?
No.
Huh?
Oh, I'd love to. And you guys, if you go, if you put in you give your address to whoever that would be, get it to me, and I'll send you my last album or the new album. Like the last album is here. That's what we just did a video. You want to know who not to be like? Actually, I could tell you this: Lindsay Lohan. We just did a video with her. Our latest single is called "Let the Games Begin," and she stars in the video. And she's a train wreck. And there's somebody who was given everything, given talent. She was cute when she was younger, like she had everything. And I've never met anyone more ungrateful, ungracious. Just someone needs to slap her. And then they need to hug her. And that's the truth. You know, we all everybody sort of goes off a path at some point. Most people do, and you can forgive that. And if you guys lived like she had to live with all that scrutiny, you'd understand that makes you a little crazy. You know, even the little bits after a show, what happens to us, it can be disconcerting, and you forget about reality. And life isn't people just giving you things. Like my life when I'm on the road is about just people giving me things. I get what I want when I need it. Somebody tells me when I'm going to show up somewhere. They wake me up. They tell me when I should go to bed. So all that stuff happens, and I can't imagine her life must be 10 times. But there's no excuse for being an idiot. So, and if you're an idiot, stop, because there is no excuse, because nobody thinks it's cool. Your buddy may think it's cool for an hour, but it ain't cool. So, someone else had a question.
Your original bandmates that from New York, are they still with you? Or?
The bass player, I'm really loyal, you know, and I would have kept all of those guys. But what we do takes much more than people think. It's the sacrifice. I've missed funerals, I've missed birthdays, I've missed things that have really mattered in my life because I was doing something else. Because what music, anything you do that you do really well, ultimately winds up being sort of selfish, right? For me to do what I had to do all the years I've been doing it, to get the opportunities I had to be prepared for those opportunities. And what happens is you're away and you're in South Dakota somewhere playing a show and your grandmother dies. Well, if I don't show up, if I don't go see my grandmother, who now has died, my mom's going to be upset. But if I go, all the people that I employ are going to not have money, right? So the guys that I played with, they got married, or they decided, I don't want to be touring. Because by the way, in first, you're in a 15-passenger van, if you're lucky. You know, you're sleeping. We literally used to sleep. You have in the vans like this. One would sleep like this. The other would be on the floor. And at some point you go, well, okay, this isn't the way I really want to live, you know? And so it's hard. So I'm still friends with all of them. And actually, I had those guys out a couple of months ago. They came to the house, and we played a little bit of music. And you realize also that they've kind of stayed there, you know? So I'm still friends with them. I'm still friends with my third grade teacher, you know? Anyone else? Questions?
How do you keep clean as far as drugs and alcohol? I mean, the industry's, is it that hard? Or?
No, not for me. And you know, that's the thing. People think it's sex, drugs, and rock and roll. It isn't. To do what we do, the people who are doing that, see, luck gives you your first shot at it. So Tom is a good example from Plain White Tees. Hey There, Delilah, huge song. I don't know if you don't know it, okay, but it's huge. He still makes about $300,000 a year off that song. I probably shouldn't say that. He probably doesn't want people to know what he makes off that song. But he makes a lot of money off of one song that he wrote when he was 19. Maybe he's 16. I forget now. He wrote it so young. So luck gave him the opportunity, and then he was able to. You can't be a drug addict, or you can't be kind of burning the candle at both ends for too long before it catches up to you. So do people do it? Yeah. Was Slash, who I've played with a bunch of times, was Slash really a drug addict? Oh, colossal. Was he really an alcoholic? Colossal. But in the end, if you wanted to maintain and stay, luck will only take you so far. Then he had to actually figure it out, and he did. I've never, ever tried anything because my mom's sick. She's always been on medication growing up, and so I watched her go to detox 4 times, not wanting to go, but because she couldn't come off of the drugs she was on unless she went to detox. And I'm like, maybe I don't want to do that, because there's nothing about that that's fun. It seems fun. Like, I love getting a little couple drinks, get a little buzz. It's fun. There's nothing fun about being drunk. And by the way, the next morning when I'm doing a radio show at 6 a.m. and my tour manager's waking me up at 5 so that I don't look like a wreck, or that my voice is even decent to sing at 6 a.m. on a radio show or a morning TV show, where I'm like, I'm already a wreck because I'm tired. I have insomnia. Adding all that other stuff is just, it's pointless. It's expensive, and in the end, it's just, if anyone thinks that it really ends well, then again, we'll go back to being an idiot. You're an idiot. I've never seen anyone who's like, hey, guess what? I do drugs and it's ended well. Things are going okay for me. You know, usually you're in a crack den somewhere at some point. So it's like, figure it out. You don't have to have your head up your butt. So even people like Kid Rock, everyone thinks I play with him, like he seems like that guy knows how to party. He drinks a little bit. He made whatever it is that the guy does, he works his butt off. He knows like by 9 p.m. at night, then it just looks like a party. The guy's asleep somewhere. He's not. You can't do that and expect the next day to be okay. And a good example of that is Lindsay Lohan. You can't do it. At some point, you know, it's like what used to be cute isn't funny anymore. You know, that's what I always tell people who are like, when I do this around the country, and there's always some kid in the class who's like the jokester, and he's like poking, saying stuff to me, and I'm always just thinking to myself, and actually I say it because I'm not a teacher, so I can say what I want. I just say, you think you're pretty funny, but if you're not the funniest kid in this room, and the funniest kid in this school, then you're just a joke. You're not funny. You're like making your buddy think, let's give a couple high fives, but that's stupid because that buddy is at some point he's going to pull his head out of his ass, so you might as well do it too. So I don't know what that tangent was about, so I apologize. Is there any other questions? Yes.
What's like the coolest gig you've ever played?
Good Morning America was pretty cool. You know, just knowing that there are 20 million people watching, you know. And I had a big zit like right here. That was really cool. I mean, playing with Aerosmith didn't suck. Maroon 5, a couple shows. Here's the funny thing about like some of them, you would think they're going to be really cool, and they're not because the people aren't cool. So we played with Train, and Pat Monahan, the singer, who has since figured out how to be a nicer guy. This is back with Drops of Jupiter was really big, and and his head was like this big, and he literally would tell us we had to clear. You know, when you're playing arenas, there's the downstairs where I guess the athletes all take their showers in their dressing rooms and stuff. I mean, in the lockers, and we used to have to clear the hallways for him to walk when he came. And Pat's this big, and if you have to clear anything for a guy that's shorter than me, then it's all about his ego. So like you expect those to be great. You're so excited to play with Train. These guys have all these hits. And then the guy turns out to be and just a jerk. And it's really sort of anticlimactic. But he's since turned around and become a nice guy because his career dive bombed and he realized being nice is better than not being nice. So the coolest gigs are also the ones where you expect them to be nothing. You know, like we did this tour with me just having an acoustic guitar, the bass player and the drummer playing like these little drums, and we played in this church. I don't know why it was converted church, and it was the greatest show because I didn't even need a microphone, and I just walked into the audience and I was playing, and people were losing their mind. So that's just cool. Anytime people are singing your songs back to you, it's not bad. You know, something you wrote middle of the night and they're singing it is pretty cool. I'm getting a lot more adults asking questions.
Who are some of your musical influences?
My dad and his brothers, the four of them, always played music together. So for the longest time, I thought that they wrote all these songs by the Rolling Stones and the Beatles and stuff. And I'd be like, I remember once being on a bus and hearing a song and saying, well, I was so blown away that someone was playing the song like, my uncle wrote that song. And I told everyone, my uncle wrote this song. I went home, like, I heard your song on the radio. He goes, what are you talking about? And he didn't write it, you know, he just played it. So they were influences as a kid. But then I'm a huge music fan. Like, I love Tupac. Like, I love really great hip hop, and then I love the Beatles. And I think that that's really helped me because I write for all sorts of people. I just wrote something that's kind of like for CeeLo. It'll be for someone who in the industry, anyone who becomes popular, there are 10 other acts that they try to follow that same pop. You know how when you hear a great song and then Jason Mraz had that I'm Yours song, whatever, and then 3 days later Train had the Hey Soul Sister, and 4 days later someone else had a song just like it. Everyone plays copycat. So what I do a lot of is I write songs after I hear like that FU song by CeeLo. I wrote like 6 songs that would be perfect complement for that song. So I wind up doing a lot of things like that. So I'm influenced by Adele and everything. My iPod is like 28,000 songs on it, you know, and then I Spotify all the time. So I'm always trying to hear something that makes me want to hit repeat, you know. But I'm influenced by books too. Like I read nonstop, and I think life is about leaving your antenna up. You know, you get up and you just sort of, life happens, you know. And the way that I look at it is every day you're in a garden and you're either picking flowers or you're pulling weeds, and it's just, you got to figure out what day it is. So, yes.
Who would you say is the number one band, or like your personal thought?
My favorite band?
Yes.
Besides Miggs? Besides Miggs, you mean? M-I-G-G-S, that band? I love U2 in terms of a band because they've done it for 30 years, the same 4 people, and that's amazing to me. And the coolest quote that I have ever heard from a rock musician was Bono said, they said, why would you be with the same 4 people? How come it hasn't changed? Like, what makes it work? And he said the key to success for them is never rid the room of the argument. So you don't get rid of the people who don't yes you to death. So as big as Bono is, and make no mistake, he's huge. He has more money than most everybody you've ever met combined. But he doesn't rid the room of the argument. So he doesn't just have people around that say yes to him. And I think that's really important as you sort of, your friends, if your friends are always like, yeah, you're right, when you're like, man, that guy stinks, he said this to me. If your friends are always like, you're right, then you might have the wrong friends. You want someone to be like, no, you're the one that did that. Anything else? Guys are like, I want you to leave. Yes?
You said that you played commercials. What
Hyundai commercial. Actually, Chad hears this commercial that I did that I've not even heard yet, the Miller 64. It's like Miller 64, Miller, I don't know. It's this dumbest thing. But why I'm happy about doing it is they pay you a lot of money. But I play drums on it too, and I played every instrument, and so it's always fun. You know, I'm a guitar player and a piano player and a singer, really. But I started out playing the drums. So anytime I can play drums on anything, to me, that's cooler than anything else. But honestly, a bunch of commercials. The theme song for the state of Florida is a song called Share a Little Sunshine, and that's mine. And that's like, hey, Soul Sister. It's just terrible. And I recorded just me and a guitar, and the drums are I'm just doing my hands and playing on my knees, and I sent it to them because they asked for this song. And they're like, we love it. I said, great. So then I recorded it with the full band. I had everything sounding perfect, sent it to them. They're like, no, we want to keep the other one. So the one that's the song for the last 4 years is this one where it's me like singing in a little microphone. It's just terrible. But so every year I go, like they send me places to go sing it for the governor and different people. And that's where our tax dollars go. Yes?
I know earlier you said you have a lot of people working for you. Depending on your success, how does it feel to have so many people depending on you to do good?
That's a good question. Some days it's heavy. Some days you don't think about it, and other days when your bass player, who you really love, is a good man, is getting ready to get married, and you feel like, I'm not doing something right, that he doesn't have enough money to have the exact wedding he wants. So I feel that burden, you know. Every year we go to Montana, and there's always these great things, zip lining and doing stuff, and I love scaring myself. I love, like, I jump out of a plane tomorrow. I love doing all that stuff. I won't do it anymore. Not just because of my kids, but because of the people that in the band, that if I break an arm, we don't get to tour. If the bass player breaks an arm, we could still tour because I'm the one singing. But if I break an arm, if I do something that means that I can't make money for them, then they don't have a livelihood. So some days it doesn't matter. I'm like, whatever, and other days it does. I think you had a question, yeah?
Have you ever worked with Aaron Lewis? Or have you done work with
Who?
Aaron Lewis?
The guy from Stained, right? And then he did the acoustic thing? No, but we run in the same circles. Do you know him?
My boyfriend.
Really? That's funny. Yeah, he's been smart because he was like doing this, Stained is whatever Stained is, and then he was like, well, I'm country tomorrow, you know? He's like that.
I love the acoustic.
Yeah, it's worked, you know? That's the other key to whatever it is you do. You have to be prepared to sort of morph it into what makes, if it's about making money, what makes you money. I have a good friend who has a lot of #1 hits, and he does not love the songs that he writes necessarily. He wishes he were writing cooler songs, but he makes a lot of money writing songs that aren't so cool. So you have to decide what it is you're doing it for. I'm in a unique position that I can do both. So I write for other people, or I'll write a commercial, but they're not songs I would do. I just wrote a song that was for either Taylor Swift or Sugarland or Lady Antebellum, one of those groups. And I presented it to my record label and my manager, and they said, no, you're going to sing this song. It's too good, you got to do it. And I'm like, I'm not singing fairy tales and miracles. And then I decided, you know what? Who cares? Don't be so cool. So now I sing fairy tales and miracles, and it'll be on our new album. But it was a song that I was, going to give to somebody else, and I said, well, I can write any lyric I want because there's no way I'm saying, do you still believe in fairy tales and miracles? And at the end, it's like, because where charming is a prince who never threatens to leave. And I'm like, there's no way that's coming out of my mouth. And now for rehearsals the last 4 days, I've sung it 200 times. Any other questions? Yes?
How has living in Tampa shaped your career as far as why haven't you moved back out to New York or somewhere like that?
Because I really like mosquitoes. And man, we invented the love bug, so we must be doing something right. No, Tampa, the thing that's neat about living here is nobody cares about what I do. In LA, you're keeping up with everyone else who's cool. It's like every time I go out in LA, you gotta look okay. You gotta look good. You have to dress a certain way. There's things going on. And so just get that whole BS I'm happy not to be with. In New York, I just love New York City, and I don't sleep as it is, and my wife loves New York, and I'd be a basket case if I lived there. So Tampa is removed enough that I can sort of visit these other places and see it, and not have to be in the middle of it. I think it's a good question, because I do think whatever it is you decide to do, you have to go where that thing is really sort of happening the most. Like if you're a baseball player, you have to kind of go to a state that you can play baseball all the time, right? Or you have to go to a college where there's baseball if that's what you want to do. So I do think you sort of have to, if you want to be someone who's into high tech, then Silicon Valley and out in San Francisco is probably a smart place to be, right? So I think it's important, but I've been doing it long enough now that it doesn't really matter anymore. And I get a little bit things that are unique. When I'm in Nashville, LA, or New York, they're the same writers, they're the same musicians, it's the same mindset. So here, it's a little bit different because I'm sort of not in their world, and I make them come to my world because I have a cool studio. Anyone else? He just looked at his watch. He's like, okay. Thank you guys very much for paying.
I'm just curious. Have you had any music on the show
One Tree Hill? Yeah, I think we did actually. I think probably the song "Taste" was on that show. But I'm friends with Gavin, and he's done a lot on that. Gavin DeGraw, and yeah, that's where he has. You love him?
Yeah.
He's a really nice guy, but he's a spitter when he talks. You get too close to him, you know, and he's talking to you like, and he steals your, like I always wear, after a show, my hair gets really messy, and so I always wind up wearing a hat, and he wears a hat all the time. So I get grossed out, but he likes to switch hats all the time. You're always like, can you leave my hat alone? So, that it? Thank you, guys. So please, if someone wanted a picture or something, if that's still okay. And anyone who gives your email, or not your email, your address to whoever it is we'd give it to, I'm happy to send you the CD, and find us Facebook and all that stuff. Say hi, and I promise I'll talk to you.